Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley.
And I'm her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi and I want to welcome you to Open to Hope Conversations, the podcast.
We believe that the greatest gift you can give yourself after a loss is hope, using this moment to connect with others who have not only survived but thrived.
So let's get started. Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, today we're going to talk a little bit about managing the complexity of grief. And we have got a person on who's walked the walk and talked the talk, and she's also got a program of writing that I know you're going to be really interested in. So would you like to introduce her, Heidi?
Sure, Mom, I'd love to. We are going to be talking today with Corry Chaplin. Corry created Wild Words for Grief after her big sister died by suicide just 2 months after her father's sudden death. And this was in 2022 and 2023. Corry is a certified grief educator and a trauma-sensitive mindfulness teacher. She is currently engaged in advocacy work to improve mental health services for those in care. And she has taken David Kessler's training and Dr. Joanne Cacciatore's training, two people that we think are amazing. So welcome to our podcast, Corry.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Now, you've been in the grief and loss world for a while, right? You were involved with hospice back?
Yeah, I worked at a children's hospice for about 4 years and then an adult hospice for about 4 years as well.
Could you talk a little bit about your dad's death and how long ago was that?
Yeah, so he died suddenly and unexpectedly of heart failure in October of 2022. I was still processing that, of course, before my sister died 2 months later.
Yeah. Was her death connected with his at all?
No, she had struggled for a long time, and I had been her main support person. But it still was unexpected with my sister as well.
Since you had so many 10 years working with in the grief and loss world, and my mother had time too. She was professional also before my brother died. And I know she can speak to this a little bit. Did you feel like you had learned anything that prepared you for their deaths or not?
I knew a lot about grief, especially being around, hospice care isn't just supporting families through end of life and individuals as well, but the bereavement program. So I was around grieving people. I was around people who were nearing end of life. And I knew a lot of the terminology. And I think it was helping me through my dad's death. But when my sister died, that was a whole other ball game. It was like a whole other level of grief. And mostly around the reactions from others.
Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit more about that, the reactions of others.
Well, it's interesting because after my dad died, I got a lot of support, a lot of people reaching out, a lot of compassion. When my sister died 2 months later by suicide, it's like people, very few, on one hand, I can count the amount of people who were able to be here and check in or be present. It was night and day, honestly, and it was quite shocking to me.
And what do you think that was about? Do you think it's because they didn't know what to say, or do you think it was because they were judging in some way, or what do you think was going on?
I think probably because they didn't know what to say. And, I've been in that situation before in the past too. There's so much I know now. And thinking back on some of the ways that maybe I tried to, say a platitude or something that I thought was helpful. And I realized pretty early on after my sister died that I needed to equip myself with really good, solid information so that I could counter these scenarios when they arose, or I could support myself with the right information, because I was seeing mostly out there wrong information or unhelpful
Now,
reaction.
what specifically would you mean by that? What kinds of scenarios would you hear?
I think, well, for example, one person, maybe a week or 2 weeks after my sister died, said, well-meaning person said, she's gone now. You have to put her in the past. You have to move on with your life. You know, you need to just say goodbye and put her in the past. And I was just like, what? Um, or just ideas about suicide that weren't the situation for my sister. Or even professionals, not even understanding the terminology, still using the term committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And right away, I learned that this isn't someone I want to work with then.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned about agency, like I need to find the right people that are going to support me. Or, there's times where I felt comfortable to say, well, actually, here's why we don't use that term anymore.
I think for our audience, one of the things that we're talking about now is the fact that rather than saying committed suicide because died by suicide, because there are many factors coming in like depression,
Mm-hmm.
and is that mainly how you see it?
Well, because committed implies that they've done something wrong,
Mm-hmm.
or that it's a sin or something like that. And it actually was illegal. The
Right.
history of that term comes from it being illegal. And there's so many more factors that come into play, including societal factors and systemic lack of support. Or people just making assumptions that, like, did I see it coming? That it's always preventable, those kind of things. Well, when my father died, I was working at a crisis
Oh,
center
wow. Mm-hmm.
and learning a lot of this, implications of uh, lack of education around suicide. And then I had just left that job a week before my sister died and started a new job as a program manager at a hospice society.
Mm.
Well, Corey, you're making a really good point. And I just did a cable television show with somebody that lost her brother who died by suicide. And we were talking about the lack of support she felt she received because it was a stigma. People felt it was stigmatized, and so that they didn't say anything sometimes. And you made a really good point earlier saying, look, you've got to find good people, the right people to work with,
Mm-hmm.
and people that understand this and people that are going to be supportive. And sometimes we have to shop around, right? Until we find those people. I think that is really, really important because in this case, Kim Burdett, who was the guest, said she felt very alone and isolated and like there was no one to turn to until she found a peer group that understood what she was dealing with. You moved into doing things around journaling and meditation, etc. You moved into another realm that helped you to find hope. How did you do that? Like what did it look like? What was the first thing that you did to try to find hope after having two very significant losses within a very short time period?
The timing of my sister's death was so impactful in so many ways because first of all, leaving and starting a brand new job. And I had also just graduated from a 2-year meditation teacher training program. Literally the day my sister died was our final day of the program. So I had years of experience in my own mindfulness practice and then in teaching mindfulness. But I quickly realized that I needed to alter that practice, that within the mindfulness world, it wasn't conducive to traumatic grief in the sense of I couldn't sit with my eyes closed for periods of time because I was having flashbacks and intrusive thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And even focusing on the breath was distressing. And that's when I found David Treleaven's work in trauma sensitive mindfulness and realizing there's nothing wrong. I'm still practicing mindfulness, but I need to do it in a new way
Mm-hmm.
and not sort of add that layer of judgment around, oh, you're not doing your practice. My practice became, what do I need right now in this moment? How can I support myself? and bringing a sense of what am I already doing, like in ways that are coping that I might not have defined as coping before. What are the smallest things, like really breaking it down? And what's nourishing right now? What's available and what's nourishing in the smallest of ways, just to try to shrink my world into something that felt a little more manageable. And I used mindfulness for that, to just sit and or distract myself. That's a wise choice as well. Like, I can't think or talk about this right now. I need to do something distracting. Or nature. Nature has been my biggest support for sure. And then the journal writing. I had been teaching journal writing for a number of years and found it so valuable and profound. But there was a period of time after both of these deaths where I couldn't write. I really couldn't. I tried, but I couldn't. And again, bringing mindfulness to that, like, that's okay. Of course, and my grief education too, like the grieving brain. Of course, I can't write. My brain is, it's scattered. It's my whole world has been shattered. So again, I had to reframe these practices for myself. And then I was able to get back into the journal writing, but again, recognizing it looks different now. My practice is different now than it was.
How so?
I think there are days where I need to just start with not having an agenda of I'm going to dive in and write about the loss. I think I've always worked from a premise of sort of self-directed writing. So I offer open-ended prompts to people instead of saying write about this, more open-ended. Like, I would always start with what's real now, and just write in my journal: tired, scattered, fear, constriction. And then I would sort of look around the room and rest my eyes on something nourishing, like a plant or the sunlight, and then just start to describe that. And then it would usually lead to something. Something wants to be known within ourselves. And it's more about creating the space to do that, but in a way of first attuning to what's here, what's real, and what's stability. I don't tend to use the word safety anymore since I experienced these deaths, because when you've had a horrific loss, the world doesn't feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always safe, but we can find elements of stability, elements of support right here, right now.
And I'm wondering, Corry, you mentioned nature. What can people do as far as in their yards or in nature to like shift their energy?
Just taking yourself out for a walk. I realized, so I also became a grandmother right before my father died. So all these,
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah. Huge life changes all happened within a small period
People
of
leaving the
time.
world and people coming into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So, through the early weeks, months, couple years of the deaths, I would look after him, and he was a toddler. So the way you talk to a toddler is the way I learned to talk to myself. Like, okay,
Oh, I like that.
yeah, we're going to go for a walk, and it's okay if it's only for 5 minutes and that's all you could do. And then I would go for a walk, take myself for a walk. And I'm fortunate to live right along the river here, and there's a lovely boardwalk. And if it was too much and I would want to come home, need to come home and just kind of cocoon, I would make sure that I gave myself credit for that. Like, good job. You took yourself out for a walk. And that just became a habit, like making a smoothie in the morning. Okay, good job.
Right.
So it sounds a bit corny, but it became kind of essential.
No, I think it's quite lovely, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Me
wanted
too.
to ask you, I was curious, where was your mother in this process?
Yeah, my mother lives here in the same city I'm in, and I was her main support person before these two deaths, but that became a whole other level of uh, challenge for me to support my mom through all of this. And I was conscious of kind of letting her grieve in the way that she needed to grieve. But she's the one person, apart from my daughter, that we talk about my sister all
Mm-hmm.
the time, and I made collages for my mom of pictures of her and my sister together. And, you know, we both wear her clothing, or we just went for lunch yesterday. And, I say, oh, Barb would have loved this. Or, it was a lot of extra concern and worry and stress to take on as the one daughter. But it's also a special bond for sure.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and she's experiencing her own health challenges and memory challenges and all of that. But in the beginning, I was the one that had to tell her. There's just so many deeply, deeply challenging moments through all of this. And especially if you're the one dealing with the estate, dealing with all of, you both know about all of this.
I was going to say it's hard to tell your mother because it makes it real.
Yeah, obviously didn't want to do it. I dreaded it.
I remember I didn't want to tell my mother that my son died because then it was real. If you tell your mother, it's real.
Yeah, it becomes very real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell people how they can find you in your writing program. And I love your prompts. I think for people who write, it's so much fun. I mean, I don't know, they're kind of nourishing to get a prompt. You want to write, but you don't know where to start. And it's like a breadcrumb or something. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I invite people to create their own list of prompts. So they're sort of self-generated prompts. But yeah. Well, I created a Substack. So that's my little space for me to experiment and explore with my own grief, wild words for grief. So it's on Substack. If you search Wild Words for Grief or my name, Corry Chaplin, you'll find everything there.
All right. Well, Corey, thank you for the work you're doing. And it sounds like you are laying the groundwork for a good process of growing through your grief and loss.
Yeah, thank you for letting me talk about this. It's a rich and important conversations you're bringing to people. So thank you for the work that you are doing.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Corry, for having the courage to come on here because you are very new in your grief and you're here showing people that you're showing up despite the fact that you are still grieving these losses, and that there is hope after loss. So thank you very much for being on our show today.
Yeah, I just want to add one more quick thing if I can, Heidi.
Of course.
This is the first video interview that I've done, and I felt I've watched your other podcasts, and I felt safe with you too. So I just want to say that to you that this is I'm still kind of finding my way, and I felt like this would be a safe space to do my first interview like this.
Oh, thank you. You've been a lovely interviewee, and thank you so much.
I love that you're saying this, Corry, and you are starting in the shallow end and moving towards the deep end as you find hope. And it takes a lot of courage.
And Heidi and I want to thank you for joining us on this show today. And we always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.